Okay, it is recording. All right. Wow, I really sound terrible, but welcome to a special edition of Four Guys with Quarters. As you can see, only three of us are here. Turtle couldn't make it today, and I am still very sick. For everybody who remembers from last episode, today we have a very special guest. We have Matt from Clapfoot Games, who just made Fortified. Actually, didn't just make it, but just released it. So we'll be talking about one of our favorite indie games of the year so far, Fortified, with Matt. Welcome.
Hey.
Sorry, I had to mute the mic there to cough. Jesus. All right. So we also have making his... Is this really a 75th straight appearance, Assassin? Should we count it?
No, I don't think we need to.
All right, we got ZPCI Assassin, who has not missed any of the Four Guys episodes or events, Matt. So he's really the one who stuck it out throughout the thick and thin.
Committed.
Yep.
Yeah, oh yeah. Turtle, unfortunately, couldn't make it today. But we've got Clowns.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
I know I didn't tell you before we started recording, Matt, but we call each other by our Xbox names because that's kind of how we met.
Cool.
So that's why we call each other by our Xbox names. So let's get right into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into, the whole gaming scene, all that?
All right. Well, I started going when I went to college. I went to college for animation, so 2D animation, and I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. I was just kind of thought I wanted to work in games, but the only real way, I think I heard Samwise Didier from Blizzard. He's their art director. He's kind of their big lead artist guy.
Yeah.
I remember him saying hey, if you want to be working in games, learn everything. So he was learn how to animate, learn how to draw, learn how to model, just do all that stuff. So I just took that advice and I went and I learned 2D animation. And then from there, I even learned, I kind of took a little hiatus and went and learned some illustration. And then I went back and finished off my 2D animation certificate, which then led into a post-grad thing that was for 3D art, game art and animation. And then from there, I ended up leading a project, a final project. It was people voted on a project they wanted to work on, and then the person whose idea was chosen becomes the art director, and then you kind of lead the project through. And then immediately out of school, I got an internship, and then I've actually been at Clapfoot ever since I left the internship. So they hired me after I was about 2 months working at this other place as an intern, and I've been here ever since. From there, I've worked both as an artist, level designer, and a game designer. I also did all the writing for the game, so I've kind of become a jack of all trades, kind of on the creative side. I don't just do art; I do a lot of stuff. So that's kind of the short story of how I kind of got into games.
Cool. So for your title where it says 3D artist and game developer, what game development did you do? Did you do any coding or anything like that?
No. I believe my title is game designer.
Oh, okay.
So that's theoretical. That's a lot of mechanics and theory-based stuff. I did all the balancing for the game, those types of things. I crunched numbers. I did all the tuning. I helped. We do this as a team. It wasn't just me, but I would help to establish mechanics and then maintain that stuff, right?
Right.
So we as a team would come up with different mechanics, and then I would get sent to my desk and I'd have to kind of organize it, and then it would go to the programmers. They would implement it. It wouldn't work, and then we'd work back. And so as a game designer, I kind of facilitated that stuff, and then I did the tuning and game balancing at the end. But I also did a lot of art for the game, so it's kind of it's a multifaceted. Indie games, you do a lot of stuff. That's
right.
Pretty much.
Right. And you guys only are a team at Clapfoot of 7 guys, right?
Yeah, we were 7. When we started on the project, we were 6, and about halfway through, we got another guy on the team.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Matt, from my experience playing Fortified, I was amazed because I knew that you guys were like an indie studio compared to some these other bigger studios, and what you guys have accomplished so far is amazing. When I booted up Fortified, not only did I get an awesome game, but I got like an awesome intro, and it reminded me like of comic book narration and like the old school superhero kind of TV shows, and I thought that was epic. Like we needed that. I thought that was great.
Thanks, I appreciate it. We were, we worked really hard on getting all that stuff together. So
Well,
We're
little does clowns know, but Henrique was telling me at PAX East where I met you guys that the game didn't start off as something like this. It was kind of more dark and dreary, and it wasn't exactly like all 50s, like very lively, very colorful. It was darker, right?
yeah, so when we established the original pitch for the game, it was I believe I wrote somewhere on a document Ghostbusters in space, and basically what that meant to me was like these like space cowboys go from like planet to planet exterminating aliens. And that was kind of like the original pitch, but from there somehow I don't really remember how it happened. It evolved into more of like an alien xenomorph type thing, where you were the last of humanity sent out on a ship, and you've been like infested by aliens, and you're protecting like the last of humanity. And it got super dark, but everything we were doing was so like funny. Like everything you were doing in the game was so funny, and the characters were funny, and we were just like, this isn't working. It's not like clicking, and the game was more fun than the theme. And one of the bosses here, Alcast, he was watching Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, and he was like, "Hey guys, what if we do something like this instead?" Because we'd always talked about doing a retro sci-fi thing, like with some of our mobile games, and then it was just like, oh yeah, we could totally do that. And like I think within a week we had a prototype again with like new art and stuff, and we just kind of like mashed everything into this theme, even though like some of it was still kind of in the old sci-fi theme, and it just worked better immediately. So we were just like, okay, let's go in that direction. And at first it was even noirish. It was kind of black and white. In fact, there's still screenshots and video on the internet of the initial version, which was more of like a noir thing. Which is funny because like almost like a month after that we kind of like were unhappy with it, so we pushed it even further, and we found these like comics that were from the 50s, like what is it called, Magnus Robot Fighter 4000 AD, which is like the cover of one of the comics had like this dude in a skirt punching a robot, or sorry, karate chopping a robot. And
Wow.
we're like, okay, this is what we've been missing. So we kind of went full on in that direction, and that's how we got to what Fortified is now.
Cool. So it sounds like the game went from like a more attack style, like you said, going from planet to planet, to like I don't want to say tower defense, but defense style game.
Yeah, I think in the original pitch it was like you'd throw down a beacon and all the aliens would be like attracted to the beacon, and
Okay.
that was a cool idea, but really hard to conceptualize. So that's where it became like, okay, we should be defending something, and then it kind of evolved naturally from there. I think from the beginning we always wanted to make like a horde style game, like a defense based thing, and then Fortified happened.
Gotcha.
Where did the ideas for the characters come from? Because it's a nice mix of characters. I mean, they're not like all astronauts or all one thing. It's like a real good mix. So how did those ideas come about?
That's a good question. We were just super into like during our research, we got super into like Pulp Fiction from the 50s. So we were like, what if we just kind of made it a mishmash? So you have the space cowboy. He's kind of like a Flash Gordon or like a Zap Brannigan or something, right? And then you have, the secret agent guy who's like super inspired by like Men in Black and X-Files and stuff like that. And then there's, obviously you need a character with a jetpack that looks kind of like steampunkish because it's the 50s.
Right.
And then obviously you need some kind of like military presence. And so you have like the heroic American patriotic captain. And that's kind of, we just kind of felt like they fit all of the tropes that we were trying to get across. We really wanted to have like a character that was a little bit more like Magnus, but we didn't have like a melee system in the game. So that kind of like cheesy aesthetic got kind of rolled into the spaceman as well.
Right. Yeah, Spaceman is going to be like the most cheesy character, but it works really well. It works so well in the setting. But as soon as I started playing as a Spaceman, I was like, wow, this is cheesy, but I'm loving every minute of it.
Yeah, he's real dumb, but I like him a lot.
So would you say the Spaceman is your favorite character?
No, I actually like the agent the most. He's the most intriguing to me, especially like on his like narrative. Like you don't really know, you don't learn anything about him at all. I think him and the Spaceman actually are super mysterious. But the agent's weapons, I just really like the death beam, and I like kind of the focus on like really aggressive weapons.
I think Assassin wants to maybe ask a couple questions about the characters.
Sure.
And maybe a little bit of the balancing Assassin, right?
Yeah. So we were playing. What was it? One of the missions. It was on hard, and like, maybe you could give us some tips and tricks. But it seemed like the agent wasn't doing like a lot of damage to these aliens type thing, and then the person who couldn't be here, Turtle, found an easy way to get through these levels with what was it, the captain with the rocket troopers. Is there like a way to like be that dominant again with the agent? You know what I'm saying? Trying to say?
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys were playing. Are you guys been playing on like 4-player?
Yes.
Yes, and level 6 on hard is very, very difficult. I just want to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I would say the back half of the game is pretty tough on hard. Fire is real good, especially when using like the death beam, lighting all the enemies on fire, especially when you can aim down a row and light everything on fire and pretty much hit everything in a line. That's super useful. That's the agent comes into play at like longer distances. He's not really good like close up. He's not as good in those scenarios where you're like, oh, this is like the last stand, but he's really good like up front. Whereas like the captain, because the captain has infantry, he becomes the most versatile character. He's kind of the most like min-maxy character, but his weapons are kind of like, they're all almost close range with the exception of like the rifle, I think. So like he doesn't really have much like capability of like doing anything from a distance, but he has infantry, which kind of can cover. The agent's a lot more of like a damage, almost like a damage support character. So he's not as like, I think the two best characters in Soling are the Spaceman and the Captain.
Right. See, I love the Spaceman because I like, at the end of the round, it's Inferno 217. My name does not show the most kills or whatever, but I know damn right that I slowed them down. There was no way they were getting to that spaceship. So I like that you could play that Spaceman has such a support role, but I do see where Assassin's come from. I think the Captain is very, very dominant.
I think the Captain the Captain might be just a little overpowered at the moment, but we are going to be doing some balance changes over the next little while as well. So,
okay, that was my next question.
But Fire's very, very good, especially on like big maps where they can like take lots of damage. But then you also have to balance that with ice, because if you use the ice stuff, it's just going to cancel out the fire.
Right. So speaking of balancing, you guys were, and going back to the PAX East thing where I met you guys last year, you guys really used these conferences very effectively, I'd say. I think your booth at PAX East was definitely one of the ones where there was a lot of feedback being taken, as opposed to, oh, come look at my cool thing that's coming out next year and you have the first access to it. You guys were way more questioning about how the players liked the game, what they thought was wrong with it, balancing, stuff like that. So you guys really effectively use conferences like that to do a lot of the QA work, not necessarily finding bugs, but finding, a lot of balancing issues, especially when you guys only have 7 people on the team. It's probably really hard to, work through all that balancing. So maybe you can talk about how you guys liked, going to conferences and stuff, what kind of feedback you got, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we are 7 people and we're trying to make a multiplayer game. and it's for the first time on consoles and PC, right? Like we came from a mobile background, so
Right.
we had made a multiplayer game on mobile, but that was like 1v1. It was a little bit of a different thing. So this is was a totally different bag. So we went to a couple of local conferences, or conventions, I guess, more like that were really small with like prototype versions of the game, and we just found that they gave us such like great like feedback and affirmation about like gameplay mechanics and stuff that like at such an early point, like this was stuff that's not even shown, like you can't find video of it anywhere. I think maybe you can find like someone took a picture maybe, but and that was kind of like, we should probably keep doing this because it was such like a positive experience. So every time we went to PAX, we wrote everything down. If there's something someone didn't like, you can be sure that we know about it. And so that was definitely like really useful. But even that actually kind of wasn't enough. So we ended up having to like reach out to our friends and family and local colleges and just anything we could get to get like more and more feedback, because making a 4-player multiplayer game is tough. It's very hard to balance, especially given that like we wanted to make it like a good experience between 1 and 4 players. And
Right. Was the Microsoft Xbox game preview program ever a thought, or was it kind of too late in development for you guys to even entertain that?
we never considered early access stuff at all.
Okay. Not on Steam either?
No.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're getting the feedback well enough from people in person, you get like immediate feedback at these conventions and conferences. I feel like that's the way to do it. I think it was very well done with the 4-screen layout and the you guys had people from the company like standing right there ready to take the information down. I thought it was really well done.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate that. We worked really hard on all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how long did it take to develop Fortified from start to finish? Like how many months and how many hours did you guys put into it, like each day?
pretty much for like from the initial like pitch to shipping, it took about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So like almost, I think like I'm not going to quote anything, but almost to the day, like it seems like anyway. So it was pretty intense, especially considering we switched technologies. We used to use our own engine, then we jumped on Unreal Engine 4. There was like a lot of learning that had to be done. And I think that's why you see the game evolve. If you look at like the early press stuff about the game to like the release version of the game, it's a completely different thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's why, is because we learned a lot making the game. So it was a pretty intense. It was a pretty intense 2 years, and we it almost feels like we made a new game every time we went to PAX. So it was pretty crazy.
Well, you guys have done a great job on it.
Thank you.
For the future of Fortified, do you see like, besides like changing some stuff, buffing or nerfing some of the abilities of the characters and damages, do you foresee like any DLC or any spin-offs of Fortified?
Nothing that I can talk about at the moment. We don't have anything planned right now. We are going to be supporting the game, though. Like you said, we're going to be fixing bugs and doing some balancing as the coming weeks happen. We've already put out a patch on Steam, actually, and we're working on another one. Because the PC version has a totally different mentality. It's a little bit different than the Xbox version. People expect different things, so we're kind of trying to work with the community. And other than that, right now we're working on future stuff, which I can't talk about.
Sure.
Understandable. One thing I did want to ask you is that I know the special agent, like you said, is more like a damage support kind of, rather than just go out and shoot everything you see. When we got to level 6, Assassin and I were both the special agent. Inferno was the
Spaceman.
Spaceman.
Yep.
And our friend Turtle was like the captain. But Assassin and I, we ran into a little bit of a problem because we both tried to cover one side with the special agent, and we were just getting swarmed with these UFOs and those things that like blow up and kill you. Any chance the special agent could get a little bit of a buff?
Yeah, we're definitely looking into definitely looking into ways to just kind of improve the overall balancing of the game in general. So, if through kind of our research and our playtesting, we find that he's doing kind of weaker. Like right now, actually, people are on Steam are saying, "Oh, the rocket scientist is like the weakest," but like in our playtesting, that wasn't the case. So it's hard to it's hard to judge. So we're probably going to look at it from a really scientific angle and see. My suggestion would be maybe just like really like mess around with your loadout, see what you can do, because hard is like no joke. You really have to like think real hard.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, on day one, me and Assassin jumped in on normal and got through the first 5 levels, and we felt like, wow, I mean, there's some strategy involved, but this is easier than I thought. And then we go to hard, and we're like, Jesus, man, we're failing levels left and right. We failed one of the levels like 4 times in a row. I'm like, damn, this is incredible. This is really difficult. So
Yeah. We tuned hard to be like it lives up to its name, and insane is it's real tough.
question about coming up with the enemy types. So I know the enemies look like what was imagined to be Martians from the 50s. We've talked about that a little bit, but when was it decided like how many different enemy variants there would be? I'm sure there are obstacles with that in terms of their artificial intelligence having to do different things. The disruptor doesn't really attack, but just like takes out the enforcements, and the all the other different enemies do different things. So how was it determined to have like the set amount of enemy types and to stop it there?
Once we had kind of like settled on the scope of the game, like how big everything was going to be, then we started looking at all of our plans and started making decisions then. And really, what it came down to was we wanted each enemy to have like a really defined purpose. And we didn't want each one to just like do different varying amounts of damage. So they
Right.
all kind of have like a different goal in what they're trying to accomplish. And it was I mean it was just basically what once we had the scope, like what would complement the game, because when balancing the levels, like once you meet the barricade,
Right.
basically like from there it was like we can't really introduce much more because it's like we want to start testing you. So
Right.
so after you meet the barricade, every other level after that is like a different kind of test, right up until the last level, which is like now you use everything you learned.
Right.
And so it was mostly just based on what the scope of the game was going to be, because we could have added more enemy types, but it might have just like muddled everything. It might have made things more confusing, less confusing, like because there's a lot to learn in each level up to a certain point, right?
Right.
And we found with playtesting that people would like when we would introduce too much, because I really wanted things to be even harder earlier on, right? But we would introduce too much, people would just get really overwhelmed, and like aerial assault, which is the third level in the game, is usually like this turning point for people where they get totally screwed and they have no idea what's going on. So
Yep.
we started to after playtesting and all that stuff, we just kind of found the sweet spot, and it kind of just worked out.
So am I to understand that you guys sat down together, came up with these enemy types, and you actually came up with more that were implemented into the game?
Oh yeah. There's a lot more. There's a lot more of everything.
Really?
For sure. Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like a good DLC opportunity.
Maybe we'll see what happens.
Assassin, did you have any questions about the game? Because you played it like a lot.
What's the story behind those flying bomb things? Because I feel like we all just wanted to like throw our controller because a huge wave of those just flying little bomb things came up and just blew us all up.
They are. We wanted an enemy that was very, very dangerous, but really easy to take out. and that it pretty much serves that role. I mean, originally, like the reason they're called raiders is because we were kind of inspired by like Cylon raiders. So if you think about like Battlestar Galactica, these like swarms of just like endless enemy ships coming at you, and it seems like you can't handle it. Like that's kind of what we wanted, and they're very deadly because you can't be near them, and
Found that out the hard way, Matt.
Yeah.
Do you, Matt? Do you have like a favorite character that you always go to?
I like the agent mostly. The agent and the spaceman are my favorites, and I think the spaceman because of his playstyle. I just really like playing a support character, and the agent just because I just really I like his super, which is just like deal tons of damage really fast, and the death beam is my favorite weapon. So.
If somebody came up to you at PAX or something and had never tried a defense game, and they were aware that other ones were out there, but this one was different, what would you have told them? Like, what makes Fortified different than like All Orcs Must Die or whatever it is, that other third-person defense game? Like, why is Fortified much better than stuff like that?
Why is it better?
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, it is. I agree, it's better, but why would you say it's better?
I think Fortified requires you to make like really tactical decisions. There's no like real there's no like min-maxing numbers in Fortified. There's the infantry system makes things a little bit more complex as well. Like being able to like move infantry around is like has been a huge thing, and watching people like micro infantry has been like super awesome. The other thing I would say is like we have a lot of enemy variety that really like changes things up in a way that isn't just like there's no enemy that's purely just I take more damage for the sake of it.
Right.
And that was something that we really wanted to get across, was that you have to react to the enemies differently. You can't, when there's disruptors around, you can't bulk your structures together, otherwise it all goes down. When there's raiders, you really need to take care of them, because if you don't, then that's it. And then when annihilators are on the battlefield, you go to the annihilators. You don't like wait. Like that's like something you call out to your friends. Like each one of the enemies was really important in terms of like the kind of like tactical puzzle that we were trying to put together.
Before we learn the names, I'm gonna have to say you're exactly spot on with the annihilators and the raiders, because before we learn the names, me and Assassin were playing, and when we do our call outs on live party chat, I would say, flying things, and he'd be like, rolly things coming. Those are like the only two things we'd call out. Like we wouldn't care about any other enemy types. It was like, rolly things coming quick, come back, slow it down. So.
Yeah, we really wanted them to be like an event. In fact, when we were playing levels, like we had this concept called like the yell test, and if we weren't yelling at each other, it wasn't good enough. So like that was
that's great. That's funny. Clowns, you got something?
Yeah, I was gonna say the one strategy that I really enjoyed in Fortified, or at least I thought was really cool that you guys did, was I don't know what they're called, but like those vent things that blow around.
Blast vents?
Yes. For one whole round, I spent all my money on that, and it was like on the right side of the map, and I just put them everywhere, and all those little enemies that are like spider-like, they were just blowing everywhere, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, cool. We really wanted to play with physics like a lot. Physics and like status effects, like that's kind of like the bulk of the mechanics in the game, and so. The blast vent is like a really divisive structure. A lot of people are like, this is useless, but then there are people who swear by it. And I think that's like perfect if people are like torn on whether something's useful or not. And like half the people like it and half the people don't, then I feel like that's a successful item, because that means that like people can play the way that they want to and still kind of get through. But it's still hard, and it's still like there's not one strategy. I really hope that there's not some strategy that we missed that like is like the Uber strategy that can like beat every level, because that would be bad.
Well, I'm sure you'll find out in the coming weeks when
Yeah.
more people get their hands on this, and people put their stuff up on YouTube or the internet goes crazy. But speaking of the reinforcements, how did you guys determine that stuff was going to go up on walls and on the ground? How did you guys determine that you wanted to use both planes of the battlefield to actually place down the reinforcements? Why not just have them all on the ground or whatever?
Because I feel like it also gives you more room, and it also makes you have like a tactical decision. So it's like maybe there's not as much wall space, but the stuff on the walls could be more useful in certain situations. So I'm making a choice whether or not I'm going to bring down this thing that's going to go on the wall. And it also just gives you more room really. It gives you more decisions to make. And at the end of the day, that was the goal. And when whether or not a structure would end up on the wall, it was just based on sometimes based on testing. Sometimes it was just like, I think this would look good on the wall, and then it ended up working out.
Right.
It was not like a scientific thing. It was just there was a ton of the auto turret originally was in an earlier version of the game was actually a ceiling. It was on the ceiling.
Oh, really?
But now since we're in an open environment, that obviously has gone away. So it was just kind of like based on needs and things that were happening with the game.
Gotcha. One last question from me, at least, about the reinforcements. If we can have one critical thing to say about this game, sorry, Matt, I want to just say
No worries.
The money system. Yeah, it feels like you don't get a lot of money in between waves. How did you guys decide? How much money to give people during the wave or in between waves or whatnot? Because I feel like I can only build one thing in between each wave.
A lot of testing. If you could just throw down structures and not have to shoot, that was a failure.
Right.
So it needed to be a balance between. Another thing too, you only can build one structure between each wave. Like if you're playing with four people, or even sometimes in solo, depending on the map or the mode, and that made you think probably real hard about what you were putting down. And so to me, I think there was a time when we were giving a lot more money, and I would just see people spam turrets and spam different structures, and I was just like, this doesn't feel right. So to me, it's about what will allow for the most critical thinking, because that's what the game's about, or that's what we wanted the game to be about. And also how to balance between structures and shooting. We really wanted that to be a pretty good balance. And you can't just run around and shoot. You can't just put down structures. You have to do both, because that's the game. And I think based on testing and balancing, the numbers kind of organically came based on the levels. For instance, in Ground Zero, which is the 7th level, I believe.
Yep.
It's we wanted you to feel swarmed without really much to work with. So you don't get a lot of money in that level, but you get enough that you can handle the situation if you think strategically enough. But you're still, we wanted you to feel overwhelmed. So that's pretty much where we kind of decided, depending on the feeling of the level and kind of what we were trying to accomplish and how big the level was. Because if you have a whole bunch of enemies coming down many different lanes, then you're obviously going to need to have more money to cover more ground.
Right.
So,
it makes sense. I just wish I could, like you said, early play testing. I'm one of those people. I would love to have a bunch of turrets on the ground, set up my blockade, if you will, of turrets ready to go at them. I think that would be really cool. But at the same time, you're right. It would just be too easy. The turrets would take out everyone. You just sit back. That's like what you do in other defense games. That's kind of what makes this game better in that way, because in a lot of defense games I've played, I can just set up all my structures and just sit there and wait. So, and that's not cool.
yeah, and we really didn't want that to be the case. And that, we did have times where the game felt like that, and it just didn't feel right for what we were trying to do.
Right. Clowns or Assassin, any other questions About Fortified?
I do. Assassin, do you have anything?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, man. I think that the whole concept of Fortified is what we need it right now on Xbox One, especially from, not like a major EA or something. It was something that we needed to play for fun, like an indie style game. And I would really, I don't know if you guys have the time to do this because I know you guys are probably slammed, but if you guys ever had like a web cartoon or a short based on it, something on YouTube you guys threw up, or some type of merchandise or Stretch Armstrong dolls or toy figures, I would definitely be interested in running to my store and buying merchandise based on this game. I just think the characters are great.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that's a huge compliment. And I'm pretty sure we would love to do that. In fact, Adam, the art director, he made a joke that we should make a Huggernaut, which is like a plush version of the
The
Juggernaut.
Juggernaut.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think we were all for that, but we haven't unfortunately we have no plans for any merchandise or anything. But I'll definitely bring it up with the higher powers and see what happens.
Yeah, because I mean, if Plants vs. Zombies could make a comic book based on Garden Warfare, Fortified could do the same, and it'd be awesome.
I super appreciate that.
All right, Clowns or Assassin, anything else? No?
Not for me.
All right. Before we let you get out of here, Matt, we've got to ask you about your web series, Northern Pixels. I know it's not associated with Clapfoot, but how did you decide you want to do a web series? I watched the first episode. I thought it was really funny. And kind of just tell us who you do it with and where we can find it.
I make it with a couple of college friends from, we went to college together, and one of them, Glenn, who, if you've watched the episode, he's on a computer.
Yep.
He lives in Vancouver, and so we talked to him. We talked to him always on a computer, and that was kind of the impetus for that joke. And my other a really good friend of mine, Charles, and when we were in college, Charles and I used to just write a lot of stuff. And we didn't really have too much of like an opportunity to like make anything out of it. And one of the things we always wanted to do was just like make, TV film stuff, short films. And we just said, like, instead of like talking about it, let's just do it. And we bought a camera, bought some clamp lights, and like just like super DIY, and just like we wrote a script and just started filming, and we actually have an entire episode that was filmed that wasn't shown. But Northern Pixels is essentially, for anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's a web series. It's about three friends who are trying to make a YouTube retrospective show. So it's kind of like we kind of liken it to like 30 Rock or something. Of course, it's not 30 Rock, but like the idea is that the show is about people making a show, and it's like super exaggerated versions of ourselves. Yeah, it's growing. The second episode is going to go up soon. We do it completely in our spare time, and it's just like a passion project that we really wanted to just like work together and write some stuff, and that's pretty much the gist of it.
Cool.
We have a good time making it. That's
Yeah, I mean, it really is funny because like it's really like shticky, if you will. Like it's like the ending of it is like so like what the hell, and the whole free lights thing. You got to watch the episode to know what I'm talking about. But I mean, I thought it was great. Like it's something I definitely would have wanted to do in college myself. So that's why I thought it was so good. But
thank you so much. Like I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's funny, and it's great because it's not long, and everybody has time to watch like a little 8 to 10 minute video. So it's not like, you waste. People are gonna be like, oh, I don't want to watch 30-minute video. It's a short video, so people will want to watch it. I think it's really funny, and I think our audience will love it. So,
well, thank you so much. We're trying to grow it, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, check it out, people. Northern Pixels on YouTube. Just type in Northern Pixels, you'll find it. Also on Twitch, right? I have your Twitch address here, but do you guys actually broadcast it live? No, right?
No. So we stream 3 times a week, And the reason that we do that is to, kind of for fun. It's for us. We don't get a lot of chance to talk, so we pretty much use it as like an opportunity to talk. But also, like for anybody who's watching the show, they can get an opportunity to interact with us, and to kind of see us, like, our actual personalities playing games, and like, because the show is about games, but it's not necessarily about games, and we want to kind of bring that element into the community as well. It's a very small community right now, but I'm having fun. I'm having fun streaming, and it's new to me, so I'm just kind of getting used to doing it. And we do kind of a little bit of a different thing. We don't stream for like long periods of time.
Yep.
We're streaming like just kind of playthroughs of games in like short little bursts, and we're slowly growing a following, and it's really cool.
Cool. So yeah, if you want to check out them playing games, twitch.tv/Northern Pixels. You'll find them there 3 times a week, as Matt just said. So yeah. Other than that, Matt, thank you, very much for joining us for this interview. I know it went like 10 minutes longer than expected, but I think it went really well. Your game is Fortified. It's out now, and crazy enough, it's still only $12.74 on Xbox, which is crazy. I don't know. How much is it on Steam? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure it's the same price. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if it still is, but it was at launch. So I'm assuming it still is. And there's a Steam sale on right now, so I think it's got to be. So I think that sale is going to be done soonish, though. And then it'll go to $14.99 on both platforms.
Normally $15. You people would be very remiss to miss this one. This is a very good game, and we really enjoyed having you on, talking to you about it, because we do love it. And as soon as I saw it at PAX, man, I was like, got to get these people on the show. We got to talk about this game when it comes out, because it was a huge success, I thought, at PAX. So thank you again for coming on, joining us.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully we can talk to you again in the future. If, updates come out and stuff, we can, catch up with you in the future.
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.